A young woman stands in the pouring rain, staring up at the gates of a massive, heavily guarded mansion in Mumbai. Her heart is pounding so loudly she can hear it over the storm. In her hand, she's clutching a single, tarnished gold locket. For 21 years, she believed she knew exactly who she was. Now she is finally about to force an answer from the people who hid the truth. Opening that physical door means crossing a threshold that will permanently destroy the identity she grew up with. To understand how we got to this doorstep, we have to rewind. She always believed she was an ordinary girl from a crowded, sun-baked neighborhood in Jaipur. Her upbringing was modest and deeply grounded. Her mother stitched clothes from home, and her father ran a small, densely packed stationery shop near their colony. They weren't wealthy, but their home was full of affection. The only crack in this reality came from the neighbors. Growing up, people would frequently pull her aside and point out that she looked absolutely nothing like her parents. She usually laughed it off. That easy laughter stopped on her 21st birthday. Her mother sat her down and, with trembling hands, passed over an old wooden box. Inside that box were official adoption papers. Her parents confessed she had actually come into their lives when she was just 3 months old. Discovering you are adopted as an adult fractures your reality. The people who loved and protected you for decades suddenly become strangers who successfully hid a massive secret your entire life. Learning she had been handed off as an infant sent her into an emotional freefall. She couldn't sleep. Every night, the same brutal questions cycled through her head. Who actually gave birth to her, and why did they decide to throw her away? The only physical thread she had to pull was attached to those adoption papers. It was a small gold locket, deeply engraved with 2 initials, AR. She spent months scouring municipal archives, matching registration numbers on old certificates, and cold-calling lawyers who had handled confidential placements decades ago. This exhausting process was driven by a deep psychological need. She had to reclaim ownership of her own biological history. Eventually, the paper trail converged on a single, shocking name, Arav Rajput. Arav Rajput is a monumental figure in Indian cinema, a man whose face dominates the culture, whose movies she had grown up watching. Her first reaction was total denial. It seemed statistically impossible. But as she cross-referenced the dates and the legal signatures, every single piece of evidence pointed directly at him. Gathering her courage, she left her quiet hometown and traveled straight into the overwhelming concrete density of Mumbai. Which brings us right back to the heavy gates, the pouring rain, and the moment she finally pressed the buzzer at his sprawling bungalow. When he finally answers the door, the professional mask doesn't slip immediately. He looks at her with the weary caution of a man used to strangers, until his eyes drop to the locket. The recognition is instant. The color leaves his face, and he is suddenly speechless. He invites her inside and completely dismantles his public persona. He reveals that long before the fame took over, he and his wife had a baby girl. But his rapid rise to the top came with terrifying consequences. They faced constant threats from criminal syndicates, relentless media pressure, and a suffocating lack of security. Terrified for their daughter's safety, they were forced into an impossible corner. They placed her in a highly confidential adoption, erasing their connection to keep her out of danger. The act she once saw as a cold rejection revealed itself as a desperate preservation of her life. To keep her safe, they had to lose her. The anger she had rehearsed for the flight to Mumbai disappears. In the quiet of his study, he looks smaller than he does on the billboards, his eyes red and his hands shaking as he finally speaks to his daughter. He admitted that not a single birthday had passed without him wondering where she was. Fame had given him absolute wealth, but it had cost him the one thing he actually wanted to keep. It forced her to look at both of her families clearly. The people who raised her in Jaipur had poured their limited resources and sacrificed their own quiet dreams to give her a stable, beautiful life. Meanwhile, the parents who brought her into the world had sacrificed their right to raise her, accepting decades of personal grief to guarantee she would be physically safe. She realized she was fiercely loved by 2 entirely different sets of parents. True family is not determined by biological bloodlines. It is defined by the continuous, painful sacrifices people are willing to make for your future.